G'day guys and welcome back to the Iron Empire. In this episode we're going to take care of some mechanical maintenance on my new F250 daily driver. Plus we take a look at the 5.4 V8 and what you need to look out for. Let's go. It's only a two-wheel drive. Guys, welcome back to the Iron Empire. In this episode we're going to take a look at my new F250 and see if it holds up to being the ultimate daily. Now I've been driving this thing for a couple of weeks now and I will admit it's got a few little niggly issues that we have to attend to, but realistically this is a 22-year-old truck. Although it looks the part, it's getting on in years already. It's peak hour up here in the Adelaide Hills, frosty morning, absolutely brutal, but we are going to go see our favourite mechanic, Jim Colpondinos. We're going to do some servicing and a bit of preventative maintenance, some of which are common with these models. We're going to go over all that when we're there, and we're trying to try and get this thing up to scratch so this can be the ultimate daily and the ultimate in reliability, I hope. Jim on the ground, where he works the best. All right, so first thing we've done is got this thing on the hoist. We're not going right up with it because this thing weighs too much, it's far too large, but at least we can get up to a good working height. And the first thing we've noticed here is the wheel has some serious play in it. So it's got the upper ball joint, looks like it's knackered. This is like a twin I-beam style front end, and the upper ball joint is on the top side of the I-beam, as opposed to being like on the top wishbone of like an independent front end car. So that thickens the plot straight off the bat. Perfect. Rotor needs to be machined, which I knew. That's what we've down here at Jim's for, so we can machine this rotor up. Obviously we're down to the metal on those pads, and the last thing that was a bit of an unknown was I thought this was a front floating rotor, but unfortunately it's not. It's a wheel bearing pack number. So we'll pull this thing apart, get it on the lathe, machine this down, and then repack the bearings. Oh man, I hate packing bearings. All right, so now we've got the rotors on the lathe to machine them up. Now both rotors, surprisingly enough, were down to the metal, as in both pads were left and right, both down to metal. Usually it's just one or the other, but I could hear it coming. It started at the beginning of the weekend, and then it's the first chance I've had to get down to Jim's to get this all machined up. Now this machine will run through a couple of passes and machine it back down to a true. It can sometimes get a bit of a wobble out of them as well, and it will obviously smooth up this surface so it's ready for braking again. And yeah, now obviously one of the small downfalls is that every time you machine a rotor it's going to get narrower and narrower, so theoretically it could warp or wear out a little bit quicker, but if you can weigh that up to the cost of replacing them, you're still far better off, because the machining cost is generally, unless you get them on special, far cheaper to machine some of these than it is to put new ones on, especially a big rig like this. So we're going to run that through its paces, take a moment to check out how this all comes down, and you'll see it true up right before your eyes. We'll get this machined up, get the second one on there, get it back on the car, and we're one step closer to having this thing roadworthy and a perfect daily driver. Alright guys, so here you'll see me wind the machine in and readjust so we can do a second pass. Most rotors will clean up with 2 to 3 passes. So let's get this going for round number 2. Okay, so now all the machining is done. We just run a piece of emery paper over the edges, around the sides, take up any sharp edges. Now, sometimes I take this opportunity to paint the hub as well while it's on here spinning. This one I wasn't too fussed, but I gave it a quick coat of black while we were here. Time to knock this off, head back over to the bench. We need to start packing up some bearings. All right, so over here, you're gonna start packing these bearings with a fang dangle little tool here. You just pop it in and force the bearing down, which forces the grease to come up through the pack. So much easier than banging on your hand the old school way. Next up, we're going to get this lower ball joint off. So I get into it to start pulling this out. Not a job I wanted to do, but something we've got to get done. Let's go. Now remember, we always want to leave the nut on the ball joint when we start to swing the hammer. We don't want to destroy that thread. Got him! That's the trick. The secret is to hit, not the ball joint. Sometimes you can get it there, but the secret is to hit the side here, and it elongates the hole, jars it, and then it will lose grip of the ball joint shaft. The downfall to this is that I'm going to get both ball joints out and this whole spindle assembly out to replace that one stupid ball joint. Stupid. Okay, so while our brand new ball joint is chilling in the freezer, I'm going to get to this left hand side and get the rotor back on. Now the proper way to seat a rotor and make sure these bearings seat properly is to get the nut on, tighten it up so the rotor slows down and it's hard to turn, and then back it off so it spins freely. This way you ensure the bearing is seated correctly and we don't have any issues down the track. Now, generally you don't want to do this with a pair of multi-grips like I did, but working in someone else's workshop, sometimes it's easier than asking for tools. Make sure you get your split pin in and put your hub on, bang it on, you're ready to go. Alright, so next up, Jim and I get this upper ball joint sorted. He's got a special G-clamp tool with a hollow which allows the old ball joint to get pushed out, and then we can push the new ball joint in. Perfect, ready to go. Alright guys, now in addition to doing the mechanical repairs and maintenance on this truck, one of the things that I've been itching to do since the moment I looked at it is change these awful aftermarket tail lights. They look absolutely shocking. Can't stand this style of light. So they're leaving today and I can't be happier. So once again, Mark from F100's Ford Spares has come through with the goods, and we got some reproduction factory tail light lenses go in this thing. It's going to look so much cleaner and so much better. Let's get that in right now. So, get this tram serviced, because these big rigs do put a lot of strain on the drivetrain, and I think it's just a good idea just to give it a good service before we run it through its paces, because who knows when it's been done last. Oh yeah, that's not good. We have a bit of gunk on the magnet. All right, guys, now the reason we're doing this transmission service is one, not only because it is obviously crucial to be well maintained, but this particular trans did tend to hold in gear a little bit too long. And when it did change, it was a little bit firmer than I would have expected for this truck. So after talking to Mark, he said the first thing we want to get onto is get this thing service. Now, if you're in the market for an F250, in particular a turbo diesel, those power strokes, they were built to work, and the first thing that dies is the transmission. So if you're looking for one yourself, you've got to make sure it's been well maintained, and if you own one, keep up with those services, guys. Taking this old cork gasket off, even though it's in really good nick. If I didn't have a gasket, I'd happily reuse that, but seeing as the service kit come with a gasket, we're going to run a new gasket. Alright, so this pan's got a little bit of gunk in the bottom of it, probably expected, but I want to get it out and clean it up properly before I put it back in. And with some fresh oil, this thing should hopefully be good to go. Now that the trans pan is all clean and bolted back on, it's time to move on to the engine. This is obviously a super basic service. We're going to drop the oil filter, get rid of that, dump the oil, and then we're going to go back up top. Jimmy's going to tell us about a special mystery juice he's got in stock for us. Fresh. Filter flicking shit everywhere. Oil flushing.
No. So this has got, what I've done, I used that yesterday, because I like to mix that up with the oil rather than just pour it in, because it sort of can go and sit in the bottom of the sump. So what I do is I put a bit of oil that we can run at, and I'll pour that in there, and then we'll start it up, and then fill that up again with that.
So it's basically what's in there is this.
Yeah, it's already, we've already got some.
And so what is this?
So that's an MBL8. So it's a friction modifier, so it's got like lots of little brass, like microscopic little fucking particles or things, lead, zinc, like it's just so much of it. But
yeah, okay.
Just a great product.
And so why is that important in this motor?
Stop any problems with bearings on the crankshaft that feeds that problem too.
Oh, so they're renowned for problems, or you've just seen it yourself?
I've seen it myself, yeah.
It's too hard. Fancy machinery. See, I just smashed this all in and expected it to mix up.
It does, but what we'll do is we'll get the trans oil in there so we can start it though. Yeah. Otherwise we'll be starting with the dry sump.
Love a good mystery juice. Alright guys, now we are all done with the service on this truck. We've now done the front brakes, we've fixed up that ball joint, we've done the oil changeover and including the additive and also a trans service. This thing is driving like a different vehicle. The transmission feels like we've swapped it. It's a total different thing. It's amazing how much difference can be made by just a service. Now obviously that sounds like a pretty basic thing. I guess what I'm trying to drive home here is that when you're looking at purchasing a new vehicle, you've got something on your radar, do your research. If it's a specialty, which I'll call an F-Truck a specialty vehicle, get in touch with your local gurus. Mark down there at F100 Spares is my go-to. I'll give him a call every time I've got a question, every time I need to know something about these trucks. He's my go-to guy and he knows these things inside and out. Also a massive thank you to Jim who suggested the oil additive. It's only in recent months he's had 2 of these 5.4 V8s come through with spun bearings. Now I'm not sure if that's a common thing throughout, but he's seen it himself and he suggested the additive, so I'm more than happy to run that through this motor as well to make sure that we're in tip-top shape so we're not going to have any issues with this thing down the track. Now, as far as this thing becoming the perfect daily driver, we're one step closer. This thing is running really sweet now. The heaters are all good. It's got electric windows all around. I need to get the aircon regassed, but we're in the middle of winter, so I don't have to worry about that just yet. The comforts are all there. The fuel mileage is not there. This 5.4 V8 is one thirsty thing, but you get that when driving an F truck like this. Okay, so that is it as far as the mechanical side of things. Next up, it's just aesthetics. I want to make this thing look the part. I've got a few things in mind. We'll touch base on that in a future episode. Also, I need to get this exhaust changed. This thing is far too quiet. I can't hear that V8 rumble. Okay guys, that's it for this time around. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out the online store. Thank you to everyone who's jumped on support. Thank you to all my members. I will see you on an upcoming episode of the Iron Empire. Cheers guys.